Welcome back to Scrapbooking Kindergarten. It is so good to chat with you again. Today, I want to talk to you about photos. It's very important and kind of the core element of scrapbooking because obviously, scrapbooking is capturing your memories on a page that you can hold in your hand. So, photos are very important. I'm going to talk about where to print your photos, how to print your photos, what to do once they're printed, the organization process to make everything more streamless. Let's just dive in. First, I want to talk about where you're going to print your photos. I highly recommend Shutterfly and Free Prints. Both of them have free 4x4 and 4x6 photos. Shutterfly, you have to pay for shipping, and Free Prints lets you have 85 photos per month for free, capped shipping. Their shipping is normally cheaper because of that. So, Shutterfly, if you're using a ton of photos and really catching up and just bulk ordering, that will come out cheaper for Shutterfly. And then if you're doing 85 or less, do free prints. Once you hit over 85 prints on free prints, they'll start charging per photo, and then that will be more expensive than using Shutterfly. I personally love Shutterfly, but I have heard wonderful things about free prints, so I'm going to be using them next time I print. Which takes us to what size you should be printing for your photos. I would highly recommend just doing the typical 4x6 size. And if you would like a varied amount of sizes in your photos, I would just collage them before printing, which is so easy to do in Canva, and move your photos around where they're all different sizes. You can do 2x2, 2x4, all of these different sizes, download them, and then upload to Shutterfly or Free Prints. In Canva, you can also add borders to your pictures that match your photos. It's just a super easy process, and I do have a tutorial on my Instagram of how I use Canva, so you can check that out. I just love having different sizes with my photos because it gives such a fun depth to your page and more emphasis on some photos where I have the big 4x6 pictures for my main photos I love, but then I get to choose more pictures because I can have smaller ones around it, and it's just a lot of fun. Plus, you don't really see a lot of people doing that with scrapbooking, so if you want to be a little bit unique, you can do that. And it also brings down shipping costs because you're fitting more pictures in one print. Self explanatory. And while you are in Canva or whatever editing app you want to use, you may wonder if you should edit your photos before you print them. And yes, absolutely. I wouldn't edit every picture you have, but if there are any photos that are on the darker side or maybe are just kind of blurry, I would definitely recommend bringing the brightness up, lightening the shadow, because once they print, they'll get a little bit darker and you really want them to pop on your page. I wouldn't go to the extreme. So I wouldn't brighten them all the way because if you're using white papers and light papers, that will make your photos appear brighter as well. So, on the opposite side of that, if you have darker photos, lighten them up a bit. But if you have really bright photos, darken them a little bit and lower the highlights on them. So that way, when they print, they're just kind of a good baseline where you can see what you need to see, but it's not super bright or super dark. And in Canva, you can do that to your photos while you're collaging them. So it's just super easy to do that all in one go. Now, when it comes to my experience with photos and collaging them, I started doing it where I would do 6 pictures on every 4x6, which made them 2x2 squares. And while I love that size and it still showed a pretty good amount of detail on my photos, you can still see what the photos are. I will say that made my pages look kind of cluttered and just like a lot going on, and there wasn't a lot of emphasis on the photos. So I would not actually recommend doing a ton of tiny pictures unless you have a 6x6, 8x8 small scrapbook. Then that makes sense. But for a letter size scrapbook like what I use, I still would highly recommend having full 4x6 pictures so that way you still have some more regular sized photos to pull the pictures in and pull the topic in and make sure your pages aren't super, super busy because you are going to have to narrow down your pictures. You can't, or I mean, you can, it would just be a really large scrapbook, but you really don't want to fit too many pictures on one page because then it actually ends up taking away from the photos and the memories because it's just so much to look at. It's just like, whoa, this is kind of a lot, and your brain just wants to check out and flip the page. You really don't want that to happen. I know narrowing down your photos is so hard, and I have a really hard time doing that. But if you can focus on the experience that you're wanting to capture and the memory overall, then you can normally narrow that down pretty well, because you also want to count on and remember that you're going to be adding text and reflections and things on the page that help you remember the story. And combining those two things, photos and words, you are going to be able to remember your memory very, very clearly than if you just had every photo printed without words. Having the two working together makes the strongest memory and helps you and other people know what's going on a lot clearer than if you only had photos and had every photo printed. So print the photos you want. If you love it, print it. Don't get in your head too much about it. It's going to be okay. Plus, if you print more photos than what you actually end up using, those photos you can give to your friends and family. You can have on your fridge and rotate pictures out on your fridge, or you can put it in a notebook. I have a mom journal, so I will put extra pictures of me and my baby in there. So that way it just adds a little bit of scrapbooking to other parts of my life. So if you have too many pictures printed, or you decide not to use a picture after it's printed, it is not just trash. So don't stress out about that. You can also just keep them and have them in an organized box and put the year and the kid's name or whatever the event is that you're scrapbooking. And then you have actual pictures you can flip through, and you could even add them to a photo album later, whatever you wanted to do. Matte versus glossy. You will see this option whenever you go to print your photos in the final steps or in the very beginning option. And I would highly recommend choosing matte. This is because glossy, of course, has that shiny finish and it will have a lot of reflection, whereas matte won't have that reflection and that blur that kind of happens whenever light hits your photos. So that way, when you're looking at them in your scrapbook, you aren't trying to avoid the glare. That is a really great tip that I learned through scrapbooking. Now, when it comes to organizing your photos, this can be super overwhelming to have to go through your whole entire camera roll and try and pick what pictures you want printed. And especially if you are just busy and don't have a ton of time to do something like that, it feels like you are just never going to get your pictures printed because you have to spend so long just going through your camera roll, let alone then trying to put it in a scrapbook. Like, that's just a lot. So I would definitely recommend having a dedicated photo print album. And you can do this by month, or you could do it by topic, once a week or once a day, however often you want to do it, or right after you take the photo. If you know you want to print it, or at least might want to print it, I would just immediately move it over to that album, whether it be now that we're in August 2026, and you could just put those pictures in there. And then at the end of August, or whenever you're ready to print pictures, you can go through that dedicated album and narrow it down, and you're not having to go through your whole entire camera roll. And once your photos are printed, you're going to want to keep them organized. Something like this. These are acid and lignin free 4x6 photo cases. And I have them paper clipped together in sections. For my baby's book, I have it by month. And then I have a piece of paper with her milestones or memories that I want to add to that month. And it just makes sitting down to scrapbook so much easier because my photos are already organized. If you have a ton of photos, you could actually dedicate like a whole one of these to one event, or however you want to do it. I just highly recommend using these. And once you have them printed, I would just go ahead and take some time and organize them, section them off. So that way, whenever you sit down to scrapbook, you're not so stressed if you're trying to catch up, because you know that one, you already have your pictures decided on, you have them printed, and you have them organized. So that way, like, you're not getting behind per se, and you can just sit down and scrapbook knowing that everything is lined up for you to continue to scrapbook, and you're not just letting the mound of having to print pictures and the mound of having to organize pictures grow, if that makes sense. So I hope that helped. If you have any more questions, please ask, and I will do my best to answer them. And if I don't have a great answer for your question, I will seek it out, I promise, and we will figure this out together. Come back for the next video because we're going to talk about paper and the different pattern paper, how to put papers together, what paper you should get, and just everything to do with paper. If you have any questions you want me to answer on next week's video, drop them below as well, and I will add them to the video. It is so good to chat with you. If you're liking these videos, I would love to hear some feedback because I'm very new to YouTube and it's a little overwhelming, I've got to be honest, but I'm loving sharing what I know is scrapbooking and I hope that this helps you. So have a wonderful week and I will see you next Saturday.